Why does the isthmus, why does Auckland need light rail down Dominion Road, or one of the arterial roads around Dominion Road? The reason for it came out of a study called the City Centre Future Access Study, which came out about 10 years ago now. And it noticed that a lot of the population in Auckland that need to get into the city lived in the isthmus between roughly New Lynn and Otahu, and they were heavily reliant on using buses to get into the city. The study forecast that there would be real problems with this model down the decades, because buses, when they get into the city, need somewhere to park, they need somewhere to idle, and they need somewhere to turn around, and then they need to come back where they've come from. And what the study forecast is that there would be real problems with buses basically blocking up the whole of the city, just bringing in commuters, people coming into the city to work and study from this area of the isthmus. So the original idea that Auckland Transport came up with was that this problem could be best solved with something like a tram. So this would replace the buses that currently come in from those areas, and instead of having a bus which comes into the city and needs to do all of those things and then go back out, there would be a light rail vehicle coming into the city. The driver would just walk up to the other end of the vehicle and drive back the way they came. So it really came around as an idea of how to replace buses, given that buses were going to be a real problem for our city. So the question then is, what kind of tram, where's it going to run, and what's it going to look like, sort of thing. So that's why we're starting to look at light rail as opposed to light metro. So light rail would replace buses, and in order to be a valid replacement for a bus, it needs to have stops that are relatively close together. They can't be any further apart than, say, 800 metres, because once they start to get to be quite far apart, then commuters start to think about not taking them. They're just a little bit too far from their homes to actually wander out onto the main road and catch. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of Auckland Transport, it really does have to be light rail rather than light metro. When Auckland Transport started looking at it, then they originally thought, let's put it down Dominion Road and stop it at, say, Mount Roskill. But then everybody started thinking, well, you know, you're going as far as Mount Roskill, why wouldn't you go as far as, say, Onehunga? And then they say, well, you know, we're going as far as Onehunga, why wouldn't you go as far as Mangere? And then they think, well, you know, we're going as far as Mangere, why won't we go as far as the airport precinct? And then ultimately they decide, well, if you're going to look at running trams all the way down Dominion Road, through Mangere, through Onehunga, through the airport precinct, why not go all the way to the airport? So this idea starts getting kicked around that maybe actually you should go all the way to the airport. Now, for a Wellington politician who's flying in to the city of Auckland to do their business in the day and then fly out again, they look at the problem completely differently. When they start hearing Auckland Transport talking about light rail to the airport, they come in, they realise that that's going to be really slow. They want a really fast kind of a way of getting into the city. So for them, the idea of a light metro with fewer stops that's much faster seems to be more of an appealing way to do it. So it just kind of depends on which problem are you trying to solve. Are you trying to get large groups of commuters into the city to do their work and their study? Or are you trying to make a really quick connection through from the airport? And it seems to me that you could probably do both using light rail. So what we could initially as a city try doing is put in light rail from the Auckland airport across to Puanui station, which is obviously a station on our heavy rail network, and that means that our Wellington politician and other visitors to our city have a really quick link into the city centre. So having established a depot, because that's an important aspect, where do you actually put the trains at the end of the day when they have to go in to be maintained and repaired and stored? Having created a depot out at Auckland Airport to create this initial kind of small link between Auckland Airport and Puanui Railway Station and made a depot for them all to go, then perhaps you could start to build the light rail link through to Auckland CBD, and its purpose, completely different purpose, is to bring those communities into the city. And let's recall actually that there's going to be a really big boom in population in those areas. So we have now got a lot of housing that's being put in Mangere and in Mount Roskill, and all of those people, if the City Centre Future Access Study forecasts that there'll be real difficulties transporting people in 10 years ago, imagine what it's going to be like as the government starts to really gear up getting intensification into those areas if we don't have a proper efficient transport system. So that's why we would continue to have light rail running through those communities into the CBD. And I really think that light rail, which is a valid replacement for a bus stop in the sense that it has a fair number of stops, so that it can be a really genuine choice for someone just wanting to wander up the road and catch the next train that comes, next light rail that comes along, is really the way to go for us as a city. So then you start to think about, well, what's it going to be? Is it going to be at grade, as we say, or is it going to be along the road, or is it going to be underground, or is it going to be up on sticks? So if it does go underground, then you're really starting to look at more of a light metro option as well, because the minute you start building underground, it gets to be costly. Not just the tunnelling and the tracks, that is less so, but when you're building stations underground, there's a lot of concrete that has to go underground, a lot of fireproofing, a lot of pedestrian access, a lot of electrical works. It gets really expensive, so anybody wanting to budget for the project is going to minimise the number of stations. They're going to be further apart. It's not going to be the valid replacement for the buses, which is the problem that we're trying to solve. So that's probably a reason why not to go underground. And similarly, up on sticks, again, it takes a couple of minutes to get up there. It's probably not going to be as attractive as a replacement bus option for your average commuter as something that is at grade. So I think that that's probably the option that we're looking at as a city.